Gotta turn everything on. There we go. Now I'm live. Okay, so now I can start talking. So we're doing it live, folks. So yeah, been a while since I've done a live stream. So I thought that for the deep dive, I would actually do a live stream on this, which I have not done for a long time. So typically what I do on these is a shallow dive. I'll just kind of go through the progress tracker, which is this guy, and I'll kind of talk about the major changes that I see and just kind of their significance in the game. On the big number patches, so like 318, 319, and so on, I'll do a deep dive where I kind of talk about everything. So this will be a longer show if you're watching it later. Throw me a like and subscribe if you sit through the whole thing. If not, don't worry about it. So what I do is what a lot of streamers will do at the first part. I go through the roadmap roundup, kind of take it a release view, sort of see what's changed there. This time, not much. And then I go into the progress tracker, which is kind of the real meat of this program. So the caveat that I like to start these all out with is that CIG uses the agile development system, which goes in sprints, and a sprint goes 2 weeks. So a team will be given a task, they work on it for 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, they reassess, they replan, and they kind of figure out what more needs to be done for that sprint. And CIG's reached the point now where they can say, okay, this thing's going to take X number of sprints, so it's going to be 90 weeks, or it's going to be 50 weeks, or it's going to be like 14, which there's a few like that. But the thing to know about the sprints is that no one, not even CIG, necessarily knows when a sprint is going to end. So even though something is 100% complete, does not mean that it's actually complete. That it just means that their planned sprints have finished. And that can be true for things that are even released. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump in. You're not going to hear the little dinosaur roaring at you this time because we're doing it live, and I haven't worked that button into my little stream deck. So let's go ahead and pop into the roadmap roundup. So I tend to skip this top part. I just go into the notable changes, and this time there's only one of them. Like I said, not a lot of big changes this time, which means that ironically, this deep dive might end up being shorter than some of my shallow dives, just the way it goes sometimes. Notable changes for May 17th, 2023. Progress tracker. Vehicle content MTL, which means Montreal, by the way. With this publish, we're adding a new team to the progress tracker that you may have seen mentioned in recent monthly reports. Vehicle content MTL, or MTLVC for short. This team is based in Montreal, and much like the other two vehicle content teams, which is EU and US, is comprised of artists and designers, and they'll be working on bringing vehicles of Star Citizen to life. Additionally, with our next publish, we'll be starting to add the Q4 2023 schedule, and it's deliverable for the upstream teams. All right. Release view. With this publish, we're toggling the Alpha 319 column to released. The RSI links will remain marked as committed until its release during Invictus launch week, but it's done. It's effectively released. So probably by the time that YouTube actually posts this, it might even be in game. But that's it for the roadmap roundup. Real short one this time. So let's pop on over to the release view here. You can see everything here is blue, so everything has been released because 319 dropped yesterday. So far, I have spawned most of my people in Orison, but my main account, I've got like 2 alt accounts that I spawn in Orison because their home base is Grimhex, but usually I spawn over in Hurston just because it's central to everything, or Lorville. And the new Lorville Sayscape is out, which is kind of cool. New player experience, that's at Area 18 over on ArcCorp. They also added ArcCorp Clouds, and you can see that they don't always put everything on here. That there are a lot of features that they kind of sneak in under the radar. They're usually not giant features, but they're they're not insignificant ones either. Those clouds really look good. New missions, Ghost Hall PvP. Probably won't be doing that one, but who knows? Salvage contracts, those are a hoot. If you're a PvPer, Ghost Hall PvP might be right up your alley. Tractor beam, attach and detach. With those, just make sure that you go into your key bindings and bind, attach, detach. Otherwise, you can tractor beam on them all day and they won't go anywhere. So ships and vehicles. Got the links right there. Again, it's committed. It's not released. It will be very shortly. So let's pop on up here. Oh, and did it turn off my chat window? Sorry, OBS had an update and I haven't updated my, I didn't update my live stream thing. So if you guys are chatting at me, just leave a comment down below and I'll answer them like I usually do. Nothing's changed for 3.20 so far. Mystical Stee, which if you saw the last video, is significant. It's more than just the ship. Retrieve consignment, that's basically just a shopping list. So you're going to get this element, or this commodity, and this commodity. And you're going to have to go out and find those things and bring them back. Ship trespass is somebody's on your ship and they're not a part of your party. I think you can straight up send them to the afterlife. Oh, hey, I can't see it. Hey, Harry, nice. So let's see. I said in the links, it's not my bag, but it's real nice. Yeah, it is that. I'm right there with you. It is, it's funny because I like the 400i. I love the 600i. I even like the 300s, the 100s. So, I mean, I guess I like all the luxury ships. I never had a soft spot for the Phoenix, which is the Connie. And yeah, I kind of feel the same way about the Lynx. It's kind of the reason to have a Lynx is kind of that bay in the back where you can transport 3 or 4 more people, and they rip that out for 2 luxury seats and no cargo room. It's kind of why. It's probably going to have better armor and shields, maybe better base components, but why? Yeah, it's not tooting my horn either. Tumble Storm, from what I've seen, maybe it will. And with that, let's go on and pop into the progress tracker. So with this one, I've kind of pre-gamed it a little bit. This time I've opened up everything that is either in progress right now or completed recently, or I think is very significant to other deliverables that are completing. And I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about all of them. Real quick, the way that I set this up is it defaults to the teams tab over here and just sort of tells you what each team individually is working on. I like to put it on the deliverables and set it up for 1 quarter so that you can actually see the week-to-week progress. 2 quarters to a year is also useful. I think that year is new. It's either new or I didn't see it before. Nowhere smooth enough to pass out the grape upon. That's a good point. You gotta miss that. It doesn't have the window that you can kind of hold it out the window and scoff at the peons or chortle at them. I guess if you're rich enough, you got to chortle. So actor status 2. This is what I think is probably going to be wrapped up in medical tier, I guess probably tier 1. We've kind of got tier 0 right now. This one, if you look at this up here, it's like the NPC status tracking and things like that. Multiple bites. I'm wondering, like right now, you just kind of eat a hot dog with 1 bite, which maybe that floats your boat, but maybe that's what it is. I can't think of anything else that would be. But who knows? But the second part here is what I think will be related to medical tier 2, which is DNA integrity. So every time you die and you pop up in that medical bed, you're effectively being cloned. And so you're cloning over and over and over again. And eventually it's like a multiplicity thing where Michael Keaton's character just keeps degenerating more and more and more, like the more times he's cloned. Or each time a clone clones a clone, it's like a fax. It's just getting worse and worse. So eventually you're going to start breaking down. Medical insurance could be a good one. So you're not going to be just respawning and respawning and respawning and respawning. If you're getting killed in bunker after bunker after bunker after bunker, you might actually have to start paying for it, or they might just be like, you're dead and all of your reputation goes away. Cybernetic limbs, that could be cool, and cloning. So there you go. And this one is wrapping soon. It is the actor feature team. Just given that it's got cybernetic limbs, they have done the concept pass for cybernetic limbs, but I don't think they've actually built the cybernetic limbs yet. So it could be that even though this one is wrapping here, it might have a lot more time to go. That 5th gen Xerox suck. She touched my Pepe, Steve. So additional derelict settlements. This is one I kind of like to point this one out because we have derelict settlements in the game right now. And this one wraps out here. This is going to be like the caves and a couple other deliverables in here where if you watched Montreal, and you can see this is MTL right there. So anytime you see that MTL, it's the Montreal team. They're going to keep rolling out settlements and settlements and settlements and building more and more and more assets to build those things with so that they can just start rocking them out, because the goal will be they build a system in less than probably 2 weeks or something. And they might have to go back and backfill some details, but they need to get to that point if they're ever going to hit that 100 system thing. And I have another vid where I talk about the 100 systems and why I think it's actually possible. And a lot of the reasons are because of the work like this and the procedural tools they're coming up with. Aerodynamic control surfaces. This one just wrapped. Weirdly, this is one that is just the PU and not Squadron 42, which I think is probably somebody just missed a tag on the JIRA, I'm guessing, because this team is working on the flight model for Squadron 42, and they're going to kind of give it to us after they've tested it for Squadron 42. So this is definitely a Squadron 42 asset. They just haven't rolled it out to us yet. Maybe 3.20, or they might have more work to do because they've got to make working aerons, which are the flaps on the back of a wing. They've got to add those for all of the ships. Pretty much anything with a wing has to have mobile flaps. They might go through and do like a couple ships at a time, like it'll act, because I mean it's all faked anyway. It's not like those flaps are actually pushing against real air, so you don't need the flaps there. Just they're so concerned with fidelity that they put them there. So your ship will act like those flaps are working, and they just won't animate until they swing back and animate them for that ship, like do a gold pass on them. But anyway, aerodynamic control surfaces, that one's real cool, especially for the people that have been waiting for the new flight model, which is literally everyone. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. It has, I want to say it was a longer sprint before, so there might be another team that has to get involved that they just haven't nailed down, so this one might jump out again, but hopefully, I mean, this is at its heart a flight simulator. We're 10 years in and they haven't nailed down the flight model. That should have been one of the first things they nailed down, but here we are. Aerodynamic control surfaces. For right now, it's wrapped. Rolling on down, AI vehicle perception. So Cameron actually just rolled out a video probably about an hour or two before I started recording this. And it was, he took a tonk and rolled up to a base and just started blowing all of the little NPC guards away, and they never reacted to him. And at one point he glitched out of the tank, and all of a sudden the NPCs were like, whoa, there's a guy here, ignoring the big tank. That's part of what this is. Hermes Conrad, one of the people that I in my org, we dropped in and decided to do a couple bunker missions. I thought it would be fun to kind of take a bike up. So you park your ship over a hill or something, and then you can take the bike the few clicks into the bunker. And the turrets knew the motorcycle or the flying bike, the space bike, was a vehicle because it was flying, and so they shot it, which we both had leg injuries and almost died. It was very exciting. But I've done those bunker missions with an Ursa rover, and they're completely ignored. Like, you can drive right up, blow up all the turrets with the Ursa rover, and you're fine. Once this rolls out, that won't happen anymore. Thankfully, that probably won't be rolling out until, let's see, AI tech feature team. That's going to might be 320, because 320 on this thing, they're planning on dropping it out here for IAE. I'm sure we're going to be getting a 319.1 patch, maybe a 319.2 patch, just to kind of tide us over until then, or to fix bugs or exploits. So that could be coming. So no more just rolling up on a base in a vehicle being completely safe and just mowing them all down. They're going to start noticing you're there. So another vid that I did that's kind of related to that is the show me year, that I said 2023 had better be a show me year with the server tech finally coming out. I want to see the NPCs start acting like CIG has said they should be acting, like we do when they're doing their internal servers where they're the only person on there, the NPCs are acting normal. Or if you get on a server where there's very few people and the tick rates are real high, the NPCs are completely different than when you get on something that's overloaded with a lot of people, like 102 people on a server. Totally different experience. They're all standing on chairs or just holding still or walking into walls or hanging off in space. Anyway, hopefully this is the year that we start seeing that. Hopefully as this year goes on and server meshing, now that PES is getting smoothed out, server meshing is kind of the next hurdle. As that one comes in, hopefully we start seeing better NPCs. Apos and Tokiai. This is the Xi'an medium fighter. We just hit the halfway mark on it. I was thinking this one might be an IAE ad. It's ending right around that time. IAE is usually right around here. But there aren't any downstream teams on this. So a downstream team right now, you got the vehicle. So this is the US vehicle content team as opposed to Montreal or EU. There aren't any downstream teams, and downstream is audio, GFX, VFX. I want to say there's one other that I'm forgetting about, but for a medium fighter, especially an alien one, like a truly alien one, save my mouse from falling off the table there. I would guess 6 to 7 weeks at least, the downstream teams for this thing. So you're probably looking at like over here. So if not IAE, maybe like the end of the year patch. But some Tokiai, we should see it this year. I think that's possible. AR and maps. Let's try that one again. AR and map marker system rework. So this guy is one of those things that we've been waiting for a long time. I'm hoping what this is that we will actually be able to drop pins. So sort of say, hey, I found something cool here, or guys, here's a rock with a whole bunch of quantanium or laranite or gold or whatever. And then everybody can see on the map, or at least everybody in your group can see on the map. But even if it's just the markers on the physical map, we know they're working on the map too. So this is a good sign. I had been saying for a while that I thought that that 319 was going to be a UI patch and a traversal patch, because I thought 319 would be dropping out here at the end of June, which a lot of these things that I was kind of tagging for that time are ending right about there. But instead they dropped 319 for Invictus, so kind of throws all those plans out the window. That said, if with 3.20 being a Q3 patch, These things should be done well in time for those. So hopefully 3.20 is a UI and traversal patch. I don't know. Artificial gravity. This is one of those things that's going to be big for the engineering game loop. And this one's got a ways to go. Again, this is just kind of, I think this is more just how far they've planned this out. Like the EUPU team is kind of loaded. So Q3, maybe the end of the year. I kind of had a feeling that 3.20 would be an engineering patch. But it's looking shaky now. So if 3.20 is a traversal and UI patch, probably anything engineering game loop is going to be next year in true multi-crew gameplay. Okay, so asteroid facilities, this one's kind of cool. So I'm thinking what this will be is just basically bunkers in space. Probably a pyro asset, unless they're going to actually do the air and halo the way they said they were. I kind of dropped a couple questions to Pappy last time, but yeah, they weren't really reading off those kinds of questions. I don't even know who I'd ask. Maybe I'll just do an Ask the Devs post on Spectrum, because those always get answered. Hope you can read the sarcasm in that, because I'm laying it on pretty thick. Air traffic control. This one will be big. And asteroid facilities. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. They don't have any downstream teams in this. They're going to have downstream teams. So even though it's wrapping there, it's going to go on at least a few more months. ATC service is air traffic control. So air traffic control, I don't know how many people were playing the game back when the squares showed up and you kind of had to fly down through the tunnel to land. And if you went anywhere out of it, it would automatically take control of your ship and you'd slam back up, and really disorienting, and they didn't think it through too clearly. And there wasn't really a reason for it, because I think back in those days, there's only 50 players on a server at the time anyway. So it just looked ridiculous. That won't always be the case. So not only with servers kicking up the number of players on it, eventually what they've said in the past is that the NPCs will be 9-to-1. So for every one player out there, there'll be 9 NPCs, and that includes flying around, landing, and coming in. So let's see, React. It'd be nice if each zone used different voices. Yeah. Right now it sounds like the same guy works everywhere. Yeah, agreed, BC. It's they used to have, what was his name, Ezrin or something like that, at Levski. Go ahead and launch. But yeah, we haven't seen that for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if they swung back and did that. At least for like the hero landing zones, it would make sense. But you're right. Right now, I think they're just trying to save memory in the code. And it's easier to just have one landing thing. Grim Hex has its own, but yeah, it's the same landing that Grim Hex has had for 6 or 7 years now. But yeah, I think they're just trying to save memory. Eventually they'll roll back and add some more. But you're right, it's kind of like Skyrim, where every NPC took an arrow to the knee in the same voice. But eventually NPCs will be coming in and landing at those locations, at all locations. And so you won't just be flying into a big empty space. You'll be flying in with like 10 to 20 other ships coming and going and coming and going. And the program has to be able to handle that. And that's what this is. So roughly Q3, I think that one's going to stretch out, because they'll need the UI team in on that one and everything else, I'm assuming. So yeah, that one's going to roll out for a while. Bounty Hunter V2, this is another game loop. This one will actually be a lot more involved than current bounty hunting. Current bounty hunting, you just fly out and blow people up and you're done. You get a god marker on them so you know exactly where they are. This is a little bit more involved. Actually, I'll just read the description here. So this is kind of cool. enabling players to track criminals via a mobiGlass security app, which has been done for a while. Not in the game, but they've finished that part of it. Linked to distress beacon, comm arrays, air traffic control system, so that ATC system, cameras, and NPC informants. This will rely on various new back-end tech. Yes, it will, including virtual AI, the NPC scheduler, and security service, and all of those are down below. So a virtual AI, they have like somebody committed a crime, or if an NPC creates a crime, it kind of creates an actual character for him. It kind of comes up with the background. Whereas typically Quana is just kind of a filler. It's just kind of a holding place for something happening on the back end. And it doesn't become an actual character until it would impact players. So if it, like a pirate, were to blow someone up and now it's created a bounty hunting mission, that's when it becomes the virtual AI. That was my understanding. Tony Z did a really good talk about it 3 years ago, but this is kind of the end result of it. But essentially what will happen is you will get a contract to hunt this guy down, and then you'll actually have to hunt him down. You'll know they're operating around, or they were last seen around Daymar. So you're going to go to Daymar, and they might be picked up on a camera in Lorville. So you got to fly over to Lorville, and now you're a little bit closer. And you just kind of keep closing that window and closing that window until you catch them. I would assume this is also going to come with live capture. So lore-wise, they could make it that because of regeneration, if you kill someone, you're just immediately putting them back in the churn. So they're just right out, and they never suffer consequences other than dying, which is a little bit traumatic. But they never go to prison. They never serve any time. They're just immediately back out in the public. Whereas if you take them alive, then they're going to be stuck in prison, or they're going to be stuck where you take them. CIG is going to have to carefully craft some of that for griefing, because you could catch someone and then keep them in a hold forever thanks to persistence, unless they backspace out. So my thought on this a few years back was, as soon as you catch someone, that player who you catch can either opt to just spawn in prison, or they can just play along, and if they want to RP the experience, just sit in the containment, and maybe their friends will have a chance to rescue them, or maybe they'll get an opportunity to get out, or maybe they'll be able to bribe you or whatever. I don't know. Gives a lot of options, but we know very little about this. They have not talked about it. So this one I usually don't talk about, and I really should. So a lot of people, myself included, complain about the many, many, many bugs this game has. And I regularly see people say, this bug has been around for 10 years. Nobody's worked on it. So clearly CIG isn't doing anything. Bug fixing and tech debt, this is every single team is working on some aspect of bug fixing. I mean, especially the ones that you'd suspect, like actor feature team, AI feature team, edit, I don't know what edit is, landing zone teams, EUPU, SST, systemic services and tool team. Yeah, so they're working on it. It's just some of these bugs are like Todd Pappy said, the mobiGlass is terrible, it needs to burn in hell. Well, they're working on a new mobiGlass, so there's no real reason. The mobiGlass has to work, but it doesn't have to be a beautiful piece of art right now, and they don't have to have it working perfectly every time, because they're working on the thing that's going to be the real mobiGlass. Hopefully in 3.20 we'll be getting that. But the point being, they're working on something that's going to fix all of it, so it would waste dev time to fix something now that's going to be replaced. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with this bug fixing. That's not all of the bugs. There are some of the bugs that are very persistent. I'm guessing they're just not big priorities. Building interiors, this is one that I was kind of hoping was going to drop with Lorville, and they kind of hinted that it was, but apparently that didn't happen. 135 week sprint. This was a big one. So to give you an idea, CIG's year is probably about, if you take out holidays and their end of year break, probably about 45 weeks, I'd say, would probably be safe. So you can kind of do the math here. 135 weeks is around 3 years of work, a little over. But building interiors, maybe by the end of the year, we'll start seeing them, and that will take our playable space in the cities. I think it'll start in Lorville, but it'll just expand the play area to a huge degree. And the work that they're doing on those buildings right now is looking incredible. And it's the Montreal team, which gets shit done. So that should be pretty cool. Will it come into Area 18? Again, that's another thing, that Area 18 after Lorville is probably going to be the one that they're going to tackle next. So I wouldn't expect building interiors in Area 18, because they're probably going to rework all of those assets, if I had to guess. Squadron 42, just want to point out, these just expect them to keep going and going and going and going until Squadron 42 is ready to drop. There is what Chris Roberts has said over and over again, is that he does not want like a No Man's Sky launch. He doesn't want a Cyberpunk launch. He wants this thing to be damn near perfect when he drops it, which hopefully he doesn't make perfect the enemy of the good and never drop the thing. But they're just going to keep polishing and polishing and polishing until... So there's a saying with artists that artists never really complete a work. They just give up on it. That's the point that they're going to have to hit here, is they're going to have to hit a point where they say, we could keep polishing this until the end of time and never release it. Or we could say right now, it's not going to be a No Man's Sky or Cyberpunk launch. It's going to be pretty clean. A few people will have some bugs, but other than that, it'll work. And then they'll kick it out the door. And right now, I'm kind of leaning towards 2 years away. Of course, it's always been 2 years away. So what the hell do I know? Character creator. This one is just for Squadron 42, but the hope was that they would be dropping it to the PU. But so far, no dice. I was kind of hoping they'd sneak it in there for 319. It would make sense if they gave this to us in the PU now and test it out and make sure it all works and it's intuitive before they ship it with Squadron 42. Like that, just, I couldn't imagine that being a good idea. You have tens of thousands of game testers out here that will absolutely put that thing through its paces. Give it to the PU and let's test it. Character work, this is just making the characters move better. Art, animation, AI behavior. Again, it's just a Squadron 42 asset, but it's going to have knock-on effects with the PU. So Chemline, if you've ever seen any of the Squadron 42 trailers, and you see that really, really, really long station with like the one arm that's hanging out and the lasers coming out of it, that's gigantic. It like dwarfs the Idris. That's Chemline. And this one has wrapped a few times. So, I mean, again, it's another one of the Squadron 42 assets that why not just polish and polish and polish and polish and keep going until you drop the game. Crusader Spirit. So a lot of people were saying, excuse me, this one will definitely be dropping like within a couple weeks. No, this one's going to be probably IAE. There's no downstream teams on this. And I suspect they want to drop the C1, the A1, and the E1 altogether. I don't think the A1 or the C1 will be a problem, but the E1 requires those passenger missions to actually work. And that dropped off the deliverables a while back. So until that comes back on, we're probably not getting it. Also, another thing, and I didn't mention this, the Argo SRV, which is right here, is done. But if you look at the teams that are working on it, EU vehicle content team and US vehicle content team, there's no downstream teams in this. So we know they're working on it because it's in the monthly report. So the downstream teams are working on this thing. They aren't on the JIRA for whatever reason. But we're not getting the Argo SRV until tractor beams are done, and tractor beams, we'll get to those in a bit. So Crusader Spirit, also the C1 has the tractor beam. So we're not getting the C1 until tractor beams are in the game. Bombs are in the game. So I think weirdly, when they dropped the Hercules, which is the C2, C2, M2, A2, they dropped the C2 and the M2 first, and then the A2 was a bit later. Ironically, for the Crusader, the one that might be easiest to drop would be the A1. So the bomber. Cutting tier 2. So this is more than just cutting things with your multi-tool. This is actually semi-related to salvage, the next level of salvage, which is vehicle munching. So cutting will actually allow the reclaimer, and I'm not sure if the vulture can do it. I assume it can because it does have a mulcher in there. But you'll actually be able to start cutting the ships, like cutting pieces off and then into bite-sized chunks, literally, so that the reclaimer and the vulture can actually chew those up. So you're not getting that next tier, the vehicle munching, until cutting tier 2 is in. And tractor beams, honestly. Actually, I think there's 3. So there's cutting tier 2, there's vehicle or salvaging, vehicle munching, there's damage and breakability, and probably tractor beams. So you get those 4, you can do vehicle munching. Derelict spaceships points of interest. I usually like to point this one out because even though it is, again, wrapping here, Montreal has said that they want to do one for every existing ship in the game. So that means that this is just going to keep rolling and rolling and rolling because CIG isn't going to stop the money train on pushing out ships. So they're never going to stop making derelict spaceships out of all the ships. We're getting a lot of new ammunition types coming up in the nearest future, maybe for 3.20. Disarray ammunition is one of them. So this is a new charged ballistic projectile that emits electromagnetic pulses, helping to not only damage the target, but also disrupt power systems. So it almost sounds like this thing will launch, hit a ship, and then just hit it with pulses. So it'll kind of be like a tightly focused EMP that just keeps, maybe a less powerful one, obviously, but yeah, kind of cool. Looks like it doesn't have a really long sprint to it, so keep your eyes out. Maybe 3.20. Maybe they'll try to drop it in 3.19.1, but I doubt it because there's a few others that they could do. Distortion propagation. So people are thinking this is a specific weapon or type of ammunition like disarray ammunition. Distortion propagation is actually how distortion works as a whole. So this is kind of, you've got ballistic weapons, you've got energy weapons, and you've got distortion weapons. So it's a whole class of weapon. That's what this is. Wrapping kind of soon. I would expect both of these to kind of be a part of the next tier of bounty hunting. So we'll go on with that. Duster faction. Dusters are, I believe they are the gang around Hurston, which would make sense. But they're going to get new outfits. So right now we only have outfits for the Ninetales, I believe. So you'll stop seeing nine tails in every single bunker in the verse. You'll start seeing dusters, and that could start mattering for rep and stuff, because if you're killing a bunch of nine tails but you're not killing the dusters may not have a negative opinion of you. And same way the other way. Like if you're friends with the nine tails and you're running missions for them over here near Yela, you might actually run afoul of the dusters. Could be. Enemy characters. This is just Squadron 42 asset, the bad guys in Squadron 42. So encompasses all tasks related to enemy factions, characters, and Squadron 42. So yeah, narrow little category, 113 weeks. I would imagine that one's going to keep going. Any properties plugin, I'm not sure why I kept that open. I guess it kind of went with my theory of leaving it open since it's currently in progress. But this is here, so I'll just read the second half because it kind of describes what it is. This is a major upgrade to the old way of handling the entity properties, which was pretty limited and hard to extend. Well, that doesn't tell you anything. EVA Tier 2, moving on. Wrapped a little while back. I was so hoping we were going to get EVA Tier 2, but we did not in 3.19. So maybe now that it looks like a lot of these things are going to be finished well within time for 3.20, maybe we get all those traversal options for 3.20, because we've got EVA, ladders, prone, sliding, swimming. I want to say there's another one out there, but 5 is plenty. We get all 5 of those. If we just get EVA is in a bad state right now. Like Todd Pappy thinks that Moby Glass needs to burn in hell. Current EVA model would like a word with him. Fire Hazard has kept going on and off. But right now, GFX and VFX are taking their stab. I would not be shocked if audio also needs to hop in there for a hot minute, maybe a 2-week sprint or so. But yeah, expect that to come with the engineering patch. Right now, they don't want to give us, they don't want things lighting on fire. One, because we don't have working ways to put it out. We don't have the fire extinguisher, which wrapped a while back. Flak ammunition, another ammunition type. This is, again, one that I'm surprised isn't in Squadron 42, because you would think with swarms of Vandul coming in and attacking the Stanton, which is the Idris that you're on, they would have flak guns to deal with the light fighters. I don't know. But your big capital ships, this is how you're going to deal with little guys. Freight elevators, there's a huge deal for the next tier of cargo running and persistence. Basically, freight elevators, whenever you go into a landing zone and buy something or sell something, you're going to have to physically unload your ship onto the freight elevator, and then the freight elevator will take it into the local inventory. Or when you buy something, as opposed to magically teleporting onto your ship, it's going to come up on this freight elevator, and you're going to have to move it from the freight elevator onto your ship. I think they mentioned that anything that isn't physically stored in your persistent hab, which is another thing that's further down, like things that are just in local inventory, if you want to collect those things, you're not going to be doing like you are now, just hitting inventory and reaching into a bag of holding and you have it. It will come up on a freight elevator in your hangar. You'll go down, you'll physically grab it, and then you'll have that item. So freight elevators, gonna be a pretty big deal. Gonna kind of change the way we do everything mildly cargo or inventory related. Frontier clothing. Who doesn't like playing Star Barbie? I definitely do. Gen 12 renderer. This one will just keep going and going and going. They're not going to stop working on the Gen 12 renderer, trying to make things look pretty. Industrial salvage tool. I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten these big industrial things. Like they've had the industrial tractor tool done for a while. Maybe they'll release it when ship tractor beams come out, because that's a much more powerful tractor beam. But we know these things are out there. The models have been done for a while, but it looks like Squadron 42 UI team is working on it. So just polishing, I'm guessing. So maybe 3.20, I don't know. Hacking was one that I thought was going to sneak into 3.19, but of course with them dropping 3.19 here, didn't happen. If it had dropped in June, you could sort of see that it would have been close. So maybe 3.20 we get our hacking patch. I don't know. This is basically a whole game loop on its own now. Headhunters faction, this is a pyro gang, so we're not going to see this one for a while. There's a few there like that, but they're making their suits and stuff. When pyro drops, it's not going to be like Stanton, where it just kind of came in piece by piece by piece by piece. They're going to drop pyro, and they're going to drop pyro. Like, it'll have maybe not 100% of all locations and everything to do there, but it's going to be pretty close. Pretty safe bet the thing that's holding it back is server meshing, which hopefully will be done by the end of the year. So hopefully next year actually is the road to pyro. I think they really, really, really want to drop pyro on us for the end of the year, but they don't want to tell us that, because if they say you're getting pyro in December and then they don't meet that match, they would be burned alive. Hex tools, this is a back-end tool. Real-time data from microservices in the mesh. Yeah, so this is server meshing tool. Very, very cool, but we'll see the benefits of it, but we want to actually see it. Incendiary ammunition, another ammunition type, wrapping before 3.20 drops. So once again, maybe 3.20. Life support, another big feature for engineering gameplay, sort of wrapping around that end of Q3. So yeah, being able to drop multi-crew gameplay and engineering on us for IAE and traversal and the new Moby Glass and the new map would be amazing. At this point, I don't know. Like, what I thought would be in 3.19 was way off. Just because they dropped it way earlier than I thought they would. And I'm still not totally convinced that they shouldn't have held off and put more features in it. It's got decent features. It's just, I think they could have loaded up better. Here's your map and radar system rework. So the map you've heard me talk about. You've certainly heard pretty much everybody that plays the game talk about how bad the map is. Radar is one of those things that people don't talk a lot about, but they really should be. So what the new radar system will do is that you can actually do occlusion. So if you fly behind an asteroid, the radar will lose you. You'll actually be able to fly nap at the Earth, and the radar will lose you. So you're flying, when you're low flying through the mountains, it'll actually matter. So radar will be a big deal, and I think people should pay as much attention to the radar as the star map. Of course, you use the star map to get everywhere, so what can you do? Should be plenty of time to get it for 3.20. Does have some downstream teams in here. Again, I would kind of expect maybe audio to drop in, but it's hard to say. Yeah, it'd be nice. I need to pull one of my freelancers, because on the freelancer, it works the way that they wanted it to work. Like, calling it up on your Moby Glass was a workaround. What it originally was going to be was your radar that's sitting on your dashboard. You could zoom out on that and it would be the star map, and you could set your waypoints through that. And for a short while there, I want to say up to like 3.5 or 3.6, you could actually do that with the freelancers. And I think the buttons are still there. If you look at it, it'll kind of say zoom in, zoom out, or it's got like 4 buttons right underneath the radar. That's what that was. You could actually zoom in on that. That was your star map, and you could set waypoints. And I guess it didn't work for them or is hard to implement or it was done in Flash or who knows. But this is going to be the new system. But don't be surprised if it's something more integrated into the cockpit like that rather than having to call up your mobiGlas and set things and then jump out. That was never the intended feature. MFD rework kind of in the same vein. They're just moving everything over to building blocks. More than that, they'll be able to customize it to the individual manufacturers, which will be kind of cool. So when you get in a Drake ship, you'll have to know that, oh, with Drake's speed, my velocity is over here and my weapon is up here and my energy is over here somewhere. Whereas in Aegis, it's somewhere else. So it'll very much be like driving around in a Toyota and then hopping in a Ford and you go to do your turn signal or something and it turns the lights on. Stealth components to keep your radar signal out. Yeah, basically that's the other part, is that stealth will actually matter. Like right now, stealth is faked. So if you've got a low sig ship like the Eclipse or the Hornet Ghost and the Saber, you just can't see them as far on the radar. Stealth components used to kind of do something. I don't think they do now. I should run a test on that and just sort of see if running grade A stealth components over grade D industrial components actually does reduce your real signature and make a difference. I don't think it does right now. It used to, doesn't anymore. Military multi-tool, there's obviously a Squadron 42 asset. Don't be shocked if it shows up in the verse at some point. Mystical Sea, pretty much done. The catch is that the underlying tech to make the Mystical Sea work and be relevant, like right now, if they were just to drop the whole sea into 319, you can't land while you're laden. So the only thing you could buy is waste and scrap. And I actually talk about this in the Mystical Sea video. You could buy waste and scrap and you wouldn't be able to sell it anywhere because you can't land with it on your arms. So the Mystical Sea would be useless in the verse right now. So they've got to change everything the way cargo running works right now and drop it in. Mission Manager app. So yeah, this is just shifting it over to building blocks. I think it's around the end of the year. Yeah, around Q3. So again, that kind of goes along with the idea that hopefully this will be the year of the UI rework. There's the mobiGlas rework is wrapping in a few weeks, should be done well in time for 3.20. Mop and Bucket, I like to talk about this one. It is Squadron 42. So I heard one of the content creators making fun of this one. They're like, Mop and Bucket, what the hell does that mean, or why did they care? But it's enabling support for AI janitors to use multiple tools in either hand. So if you drop that part with just the janitors, this allows AI to use tools or things, entities in either hand. That's kind of cool. That's more than just mopping the floors. But that said, even if it is just mopping the floors, we're going to need NPCs to swab the decks, because players sure as hell won't do it. New interdiction scenarios. Again, this is another one. We'll get it in modules. They'll kind of keep dropping in like weird things to interdict us as we're flying around the verse. And expect this one to just keep going and going and going. They're always going to be thinking up new things to throw at us, like weird aliens or asteroids or asteroid bases, derelict ships, who knows. Data heist, you can do your own Ocean's 11 thing. Implementing missions that task players with infiltrating locations, often held by NPCs. So infiltration, in my mind, isn't going in like Rambo. It's actually putting on the science jacket and acting like you belong there and having like the multi-card pass to get through the gates and stuff. That says to me. So this is the mission that we saw for the Microtech reveal a few years back, where the guy lands at the base, goes in, steals the data, goes out, jumps on the Carrack. That was the Carrack reveal too. Mining Resource Rush. This is a cool one. I think they're missing the mark on a couple of these. So I have been saying for a while that I think the first tier of info running, so for the ships like the MSR, the Terrapin, Caterpillar as servers, Herald, they should have it that those ships can actually go out and mark locations or mark assets. So those ships can go out and find a derelict ship. And then, for example, like a derelict ship that can be salvaged. And they could create a beacon that has the information of the ship that they scanned. And then they can set a price. Other players can see that and say, yeah, I'll buy that for that because I know I can get 10 times that once I salvage this thing. So the data runner would have to know the value of the location, because if he overprices it, like if there's only 10,000 worth of material there and they're selling it for $1 million, any salvager that knows what they're doing is going to be like, no. But if they do it the other way around, like sell for 10,000, it's worth $1 million, they'll have tons of people buying. So it's good to kind of know what the value is if you're an info runner. One of the ideas. So I think they could have gone that route because it utilizes what's already in the game now, the beacon system and scanning. Creating the beacon out of what you scan would be new, but I don't think that would be a real difficult climb, says the guy with an art degree. New system, Mining Rush. Again, I wish that they would have, rather than having NPCs generate missions that players can take, make it more involved. Like, just let the players create the missions. You could have these as backup if there's not players doing it, but have the players make the missions. And it's much more involved. People that have terrapins and the like and heralds can actually use them for what they were designed for. New missions, packages, extraction, dirty. A new multiplayer mission where players will work together to recover stolen prototype ship components. So yeah, this is the one where the Nine Tails are basically flying off in a ship. You have to stop them, steal the components that they stole, and then give it back to Crusader. I'm hoping that we can add, and this is coming in 3.20, I believe. Let me double check that. Okay, it doesn't say it is, but I think that this is one of the ones that they mentioned they're going to try to get in there. What would be cool is you'd get a crime stat for it, but you could put those highly classified components in your ship and your ship would perform like crazy. I think that would be cool. Just kind of give it a lawful, unlawful option, or like temptation. New missions, retrieve consignments. It is 3.20. It's basically, consignment is just like a shopping list. So you're just going to be here it is. New mission where the players are tasked with locating critical items in a consignment list, then safely extract them. So it's going to be like, get my brother's belt buckle from this base and the sword of whatever from over here, and who knows, that dude's head. Salvage contracts, again, this is one of those things that I wish they would have had it, that players have the option to make those contracts as well, or even other salvagers. Like if you're out there and your vulture there, I've done this a few times where I've come up on something that's had like 6 wrecks around me. My vulture can only hold 12 SEUs, so I fill it up and I will just sort of send it out in chat of, anybody want to add me to a party and jump to my location, there's a lot of stuff here. And then, I turn on my quantum drive and point to a location, and then once they jump in, I jump out, so just in case they're all like, yeah, I'll kill you and steal your stuff. Anyway, I think they could have done it that way. The salvage missions are fun. Like, play those missions if you're getting into the salvage gameplay. Those are good missions. Just make sure that you bind that key to unlock components and stuff, because that's where the money is. NPC scheduler service. Again, this is just kind of Quana and stuff like that. Just make them feel more lifelike. hopefully by the end of the year. That was kind of one of my show me things that prove that you can make these NPCs work the way that you said, now that you're starting to get the server tech. So fingers crossed. Origin X1, Origin Space Spike. Paul Shelley, Astropub really wants this one. The problem is, so this is a good one that I kind of used for this. So the reason that I break it out is that if you look at this space bike, which is roughly the size of a Nox, so not a big bike. Yeah, it starts here and it goes all the way out here. So, I mean, this thing, if you were just to look at that bar, has a sprint that's larger than, almost as large as the Corsairs. I mean, that's 87 weeks. So that's, again, if you do dev time, almost 2 years worth of work. But it's because they had one team work on it like 2 years ago. And then the next team is picking it up way over here. And I think the reason why they didn't have this team work on it over here, one is because they're overloaded with higher priority ships, but I think they wanted to drop it with the 600i gold standard. So hopefully now that 319 is dropped, we see the 600i come back on, because they made a lot of progress on it. If that's the case, then we know they're going to drop the 600i rework and, or I guess update, although they are basically gutting the inside of the 600i. Drop those two at the same time. If they're not planning on doing that, I'm kind of with Paul. Just if you're not going to team those two together, just drop the X1. Why not? The 400i has a hangar specifically for the X1, so just knock it out the door. Outpost Homestead. So originally these were going to be pyro assets, but they kind of rolled along on those faster than they did with server meshing. So I think they might start rolling them out to Stanton, like Daymar and all of that. So we might even see those at the end of the year. But you can sort of see that a lot of these things that were supposed to be pyro assets are wrapping near the end of the year. So don't hold your breath that 4.0, which is pyro, is dropping at the end of the year. But I think that's what they're aiming for. They just don't want to say it, which I absolutely don't blame them. Persistent hangars, persistent habs. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the freight elevators, where your inventory will be physicalized. So now you will be physically storing things. You won't have a bag of holding. All of your stuff will either be in your hangar or in your hab. If it's in local inventory, they'll have to be delivered probably to your hangar, and then you can move it to your hab. Or you'll have to physically store it in your hab. But it'll give you a reason to go back to your hab, which we don't have right now. Like if you want that helmet, you're not just going to be able to reach into the bag of holding. You're going to have to go back to your hab, grab that special helmet you like, and put it on, or that gun, or ammo, or whatever. So that's persistent streaming and server meshing. I mean, it's looking pretty good. It's stretched out a few times, but it's looking pretty good. And this right here is the blocker on the game right now, is streaming and server meshing. You want to know why NPCs are derpy? It's this. You want to know why we don't have pyro? It's this. So, and that's been the case for probably 5 or 6 years. So this right here is the God tech. So once we get that, they're going to keep rolling it out. So this is another one of those where this isn't the end of persistent streaming and server meshing. That's going to keep going and going probably. Physical damage and breakability, again, related to salvaging. Yeah, it's just literally breaking up the ship. Physics, ropes, and simulation. And I think, if I remember right, YouTube kind of has a limit to the amount of time that you can record, so I'll kind of pick things up a little bit here. Physics and rope simulation, I think that this one is fascinating because I don't know what the hell it is. Maybe it's on worlds where they don't have like cranes and tractor beams. You can physically use a rope to move cargo around. I would assume for exploration, ropes would be used. But but it's one that's kind of wrapping. It's wrapped a couple times, but this physics team just keeps diving back into it. And capital ships, faster roping from drop ships towing. Oh no, that's a good idea. So North End Trooper. Can imagine why you might, with a name like that, you might be mentioning fast roping. But yeah, coming out of drop ships. I hadn't even thought about that. That's a good point. Plasma ammunition, another ammunition type. Again, wrapping right around there. They have a whole bunch of new ammunition team types that the weapon feature team is working on right around that. Maybe 3.20. Visor and HUD, again, wrapping around there. That's one of the UI things that I thought was kind of iffy if they were going to drop 3.19 in June. But since they dropped it over here, obviously not. But it does mean that it's going to be done well within time for 3.20. So let's go on down. So we got Pyro Space Station. So they've got a few Pyro assets here. This kind of gives you a good idea of where CIG thinks Pyro's going to land. So this one's sort of square in the middle of Q3. This one's kind of near the end of Q3. So that I'm looking at all these things like server meshing and the Pyro assets, and they're all kind of wrapping around the end of the year. And granted, they could have many more sprints that they need to do on it. But if at the end of IE they said, I'm surprised it's 4.0, I wouldn't be shocked. That was my Chris Roberts impression. I know it's bad. Quantum Simulation, Tony Z's baby. That one's cool. We'll probably need that for the whole C. Not 100% necessary, but it would make it like at the actual back end economy working would be a good thing to have with the whole C. Rastar. So Rastar, this is CIG's version of Rastar, but eventually when we get the Pioneer, and I'm assuming we'll have smaller construction vehicles or that will be able to build like a little base or something. But the Pioneer in particular will use Rastar to build those bases. In theory, wrapping, obviously when they roll it out to the players, that's going to be a whole other sprint, I would guess. Refinery ships, this is the Expanse and the Odyssey both have a refinery. Starfare has a refinery too. In theory, it could refine gas, but they've kind of moved away from gas. But so if you're looking forward to kind of the last element of mining, because the last thing you want to do in mining now is refining it. So you go out, they've kind of filled in all the different levels of being able to collect the ore. And now they're going to start filling out how to refine it. Maybe the end of the year, but they don't have any of the actual ships. Like I would assume they would roll out the Expanse first because it's a starter ship for that game loop. Resource management, huge piece for engineering gameplay. Dropping, well, at the moment, finishing around IE. So let's see. We've got, checking my time again. Rough and Ray faction, again, that's a Pyro gang. Don't really need to worry about it. RSI Lynx is done, which is why I say even though they moved it to committed, it's released. They finished it. RSI Polaris. Now, I've heard a couple content creators who really should know better talk about the Polaris and 24 weeks, and they're just looking at this thing sort of saying, oh, well, it's going to drop in September. It's going to drop for IE. No. This thing's going to run 70 to 90 weeks at least. It's going to take a while. Polaris, it doesn't have any weird alien tech or like game loops that aren't in the game. It just fires really big torpedoes. So it might have a shorter path than, say, something like the Banner Merchantman. But it's still going to take a while. It's still a big ship. RSI has a pretty well-established style guide, so that'll speed up a little bit. it's not going to speed it up to 24 weeks. No, this thing's going to take a long time. And there's no downstream teams in here. So even if they thought they could wrap this thing in 24 weeks, downstream teams would kick it out to here anyway. But no, this thing's going to be like 90 weeks minimum. Salvage vehicle munching, that's the other part of, that's the next tier of salvaging, where you're actually cutting the ship up and munching through the skeleton. I would assume that would be more valuable than the skin. Right now, the skin is artificially valuable, and I think eventually that'll be determined by what kind of armor they had on it. Yeah, I'm just gonna stick with that. See it, I am handling that just wrapped. Not in 3.20, but not 3.19, but hopefully by 3.20, if you're riding shotgun in a Cyclone or something, or on a Dragonfly, you'll literally be able to ride shotgun because you'll be able to shoot stuff. Let's see, Security Network V1. Will we get that 72-week ship? Pocket carrier for Fury. Man, I wish. I'll get to that one. I'll get to that one. Unannounced is right down here. I'll get there. I'll explain what I think that one is. Security Network V1. This one's related to hacking and also protecting your own ship. So I think that this one will be, you can say this person can be a passenger on my ship, but they can't like fly the ship. They can't access the weapons. Like they're just going to be sitting. I think that's what this is. I hope that's what that is. Ship trespass is kind of an early version of that, where that's what they're talking about over here for 3.20 for this right here. Basically, if somebody gets on your ship and they aren't a party member, you can execute them and you don't have to worry about sliding. Another traversal thing, wrapping pretty soon. Again, one that I thought that they might be able to sneak into 3.19, but since they dropped 3.19 over here at 3.20, get the point. So if you're ever wondering why this ship or that ship isn't being worked on and what is CIG doing, and this thing has been a concept ship for however many years, this is why. They're working on Squadron 42 ships. All of those teams that would be working on that ship are right here, like Audio, GFX, Squadron 42, Vehicle Concept Team, EU Vehicle Content Team, US Vehicle Content Team. The only one that isn't on there is Montreal, and I think that that's because they realized they have like a big tech deficit for the PU, and so they're kind of like, Montreal, you work on the PU ships, you guys focus on Squadron 42. Thinking that's what's going on. Star Wars, related to localization, just basically all of the text in the game, but also being able to do different languages. Let's see. I was late watching your Fed video on that. Wouldn't that include the Polaris? I say Squadron 42 like Overwatch just did. I'm not sure what's that, Raven. I don't follow Overwatch. What'd they do? Let me know in the comments. I'll keep going. Swimming, another traversal. Subsumption is more that Polaris is announced. This one isn't. Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. The big 72 one is not the Polaris. They got rid of PvE. No kidding. Yeah, I don't think they'll ever get rid of PvE in this game. Just like subsumption. The NPCs are going to be CIG's way of controlling the economy and controlling the game to a certain extent. So you'll be able to impact a market, but you won't be able to control it. So you'll be able to make things cost a little bit more for like a few days, but then the NPCs will kind of flow in and distribute out the goods or whatever. You won't be able to lock down a system, that sort of thing. Swimming tier 0. More traversal. Test runner. I forget what test runner is. I think it's data collection. Build folder, data collection. Yeah, so it's a back-end tool. Tracking app. This is related to the bounty hunting thing. And like I said, it wrapped a while ago. Or did it? Now it's gone. Did they slap it back on there? No, I think this one wrapped a while ago. I just didn't click far enough back. That's related to bounty hunting. So that's the Mobiglass app that you'll look at, that you'll sort of say, they were just cited here, they were just cited here, they were just cited here, and then you get down. Utaflex crossbow. This one wrapped a couple years back. I want to say it was a Kickstarter reward. So people that were backers by a certain date got the crossbow, but it's not in yet. My point is, do we even want Squadron 42? I do, Ragnar. I think that Squadron 42, I'll put it this way, they could totally run like a Madden with Squadron 42 and just roll out a new Squadron 42 every couple of years and make millions of dollars off of that just over and over and over and over again. And it doesn't just have to be Squadron 42. They could roll out like Privateer. It'll have a decent story. Chris Roberts is not the most creative person when it comes to writing stories, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have high hopes. We'll see. It has a good cast. I'll give it that. So, but Squadron 42, I mean, they won't all have a cast like that, but imagine that they have a single player game where you're a salvager out on the edge and you come across an alien ship, and that's kind of the story of that one. Like, it's a DLC. They could just keep doing DLCs like that. And since they've created all these different game loops, they could just have game after game after game. They've got the engine. So they have the PU that's their multiplayer, massively multiplayer thing forever. And then they just sort of push out these single player modules every once in a while for the people that don't want to play a massively multiplayer game. Like my dad, for example. But yeah, Squadron 42 is a big deal for this game, although I will admit it's eating up a huge amount of dev time. Like, I would feel a lot better about Squadron 42 had it dropped a year ago. I'll put it that way. Right now, it's kind of like, I want to fly around on my Banu Merchantman and go to Goss, which is 5 years off ish. Don't quote me on that. So the unannounced content. So a lot of these have been done for a while. So I'll kind of blow through the earlier ones. Just because they've been done for a while, we haven't got them yet, which means that they're waiting for underlying tech. This one's kind of interesting because look at all the teams that have been working on it. Again, this one's been done pre-pandemic, I want to say. But you got a mocap team. I think that this might be a pyro thing. Salty Mike hates Squadron 42. He does and he doesn't. He gets a lot of crap for that. I think he kind of hates, kind of like I was just saying, that sucks up the dev time. Yeah, I've been following Salty Mike we're fellow Mikes, so two Mikes don't make a wrong. But yeah, it's, he doesn't hate it, but I think he's kind of annoyed how much dev time it takes up. Like Salty Mike's interest is more on the industrial side, particularly mining. And so you're not going to be mining a lot in Squadron 42. So it's kind of like, I get why they're doing it, and he gets why they need Squadron 42 to go out. But it's kind of like I just said, I would feel better about Squadron 42 if they had rolled it out a year ago, as opposed to, I think, 2.5 years from now is when they'll actually drop it. Unannounced content. I don't know what this is. I think it's related to a landing zone in Pyro. 12 weeks for an unannounced vehicle concept. This one's been sitting out there for a long time. I don't know what this is. Maybe a jalopy or something. I don't know. But they haven't dropped this one on us, and they've had plenty of unannounced vehicles move into release. Again, another landing zone one. I'm guessing a bunch of these are probably Pyrotech. Which is funny, Pyrotech. Unannounced content. There's one of these that was... Oh, is it gone now? It is gone now. Oh, no, here it is. Okay. So this one is the game services team. I think this is, 2024. They might do the announcement 2024. So it's funny that you mentioned that, Graceful. That's, I would not be shocked if they say coming like winter 2025 at the end of 2024. So they give themselves a year when they think that the game is done. like actually done, they're going to give themselves a year and they're just going to polish it. Yeah. But that's not going to be this year. Earliest will probably be next year, I would think. Fingers crossed you're right and I'm wrong, though. Game services team, this is the only one that I think is interesting because I think it's org tools. Just because right now orgs are useless. I mean, I ostensibly run an org, and there's no real reason to be in an org right now. I mean, it's dropping with other people, which can be fun. But the tools aren't really there to enable it. It takes so long to get a group together that's just not worth it. I mean, it is when you actually get together and start playing together, but it takes so long to do that people have lives. But I think that might be what this is finally a way to fix that. I think it's waiting on server meshing. Announced vehicle 2 weeks, just the narrative team. So this one is waiting a handoff to the vehicle concept team to draw it. This is just the write-up. So the only thing that they're doing here is they're sort of saying, this is a ship that'll do this. They haven't drawn it yet, so we're still waiting on that one. So here's that big 78-week thing. So this one's interesting because they are building it right now. This is the vehicle concept art team had their hands on it for over 66 weeks. And to give you a comparison, the Odyssey, which is bigger than the Carrack, took 55 weeks, I think it was like 50 some weeks. So this thing took longer. What I think this is the Gotok Sulian, which we've heard about, like people have talked about that being released. They've been talking in the monthly reports about a big alien ship that has a weird way in and out. I think what's going on right here, you can see that the vehicle content team started working on it here and the vehicle concept team is going here. I think they're white boxing it, so kind of working hand in hand and kind of handing it back and forth up to here. And so the concept team is almost wrapped. Yeah, I think this is the Sulian. I think we'll get the concept sale for this for Alien Week, which is going to be about here, which would make sense. So that'll give them a couple weeks to kind of make sure that they've got all of the sales documents done for that. And then they're going to build it out. It'll probably be released next year, just since they're actually building it. So the concept sale will be here. It'll be released. It'll be kind of like the, I think they did the Corsair that way, that they released it, but they were working on it. 41 weeks. This is, the Mirai Fury is that one. Now it's kind of hard. One of these two is the Storm. I think it's probably the 15-week one because it looks like a pretty small single-person tank. So I think this is the Storm, which means, what's this guy? 28 weeks is a little bit bigger. Let's see. Wasn't there word of an Argeo MCV and something of an Anvil Carrack? I didn't hear about the Carrack, did hear about the Argo MCV, which could be what this is. I think that this 29-week thing here, I think that might be the large 29 weeks. So actually building it 29 weeks isn't a huge ship. That's something like freelancer sized. But there was one on here, like 28 weeks. That could be our salvaging vehicle. The large salvaging vehicle, since that's just the concept. I think that this might be the large salvager from RSI that they had us vote on in, what was it, SitCon a year ago? I think that's what this guy is. I think this is the Storm. This is obviously the Fury. This one's the Sulian. 29 weeks to actually build it out. This is something relatively small, maybe something on the Atlas platform. I would hope that we would get a flatbed with a tractor beam so that it can move around the big cargo boxes. Would be kind of cool. I said that a few times. Montreal vehicle content team, 16 weeks. I don't know what these are. If they are as fast at building vehicles as they are with building locations, Yeah, I mean, I've gotten used to kind of judging what the EU and the US team's timing is like, so I kind of have to see what this is first. And I don't know if this is vehicle concept, like they're just doing the art during this time, or if they're actually building it. So we kind of have to see with these Montreal ones what they actually are, and then we can kind of make ideas. Love the idea of the character, but I don't like the look of it. Yeah, that's fair. Last Sitcon thought it was a miner, not a salvager. You're right. You're right. It is a large miner, not a large salvager. Underground facilities. Yeah, because that's the one we're missing, something that's like Starfarer size. That's a miner. That we've got the gigantic one. That's the Orion. We've got the Mole. That's the medium. We got the Prospector. That's the small, and then we got the two grounds and the rocks and the Rock DS. So, and we got hand mining. So yeah, we need that Starfarer size, which is the RSI one. I think that's what this guy is. Mirai Cap Concept Park Pocket Carrier. That would be interesting. So Misk Mirai, it seems like it's more of a performance brand, but then they bring out the Fury. I don't need that. Okay. Oh, I know what that is. Got logged off of work, which should have happened like 4 hours ago. Anyway, underground facilities. This one will be cool. Like, these things looked cool. I think we'll start with just one. I wouldn't be shocked if they drop at the same time that building interiors do, because it just kind of makes sense to have those two. They're kind of copacetic. They don't necessarily go hand in hand, but gameplay wise, they kind of do. Like it's infiltration into a building. And it would bring in those new game loops. But again, Montreal is working on it, and those dudes work fast. We're almost done here. Vehicle tractor beams. You're not getting the SRV until this is done. Probably not getting the C1 until this is done. There are loads of ships out there with tractor beams that people have just kind of forgotten about, like the 315P. I believe the Cutlass has a tractor beam on it. I know the Caterpillar has tractor beams on either, like on that little wing and inside. If you go into the Caterpillar's command module, if you go downstairs, that's a tractor beam module. So yeah, lots of cool stuff with tractor beams. Virtual AI service, it's related to Quanta. This one's around Q3. Again, is it actually Q3, or are they going to be doing more work? We don't know. And the Volt weapons, start sniffing around boxes, especially super rare ones. They might have snuck those Volts in there, because these guys have been done for a while. And they kind of hinted that they were going to drop them into the game for a while there, and then they just never showed up. But those guns have been done for a bit. They might be waiting for some of the new, come here, kid. Come here. There you go. My dog is very bored with my talking to the big blank screens. But yeah, Subsumption, Quantum AI, man, if there's one thing that happens this year, if we're not getting Pyro, I want to see the NPCs acting not derpy. Weapon misfire and wear, that could be kind of a cool engineering sort of side project. Your guns, you'll actually have to maintain them. I hope it's not too over the top right now with eating and drinking. It's a little bit too much. Like, your water drops so fast that you'll be in the middle of a firefight and you're gonna be like, I'm gonna die of dehydration, where I've been badly dehydrated before. It sure as hell didn't happen in 20 minutes. So 0G push pull kind of goes along with EVA. Here we go. Wasn't the Nomad supposed to have a tractor beam? Was it? I don't know if the Nomad did. I believe so. Nomad, Cutlass, C1, Caterpillars. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Learn something new every day. I know the Argo Raft had one to move the big guys up onto those cranes. So yeah, there's a lot of ships out there that are just waiting on that tractor beam. Like, we haven't seen everything. And that is it for the roadmap, gang. So thanks for hanging out with me. One last thing I wanted to show you. They've mentioned Boyds and Floyds before. which is BOIDS, and FLOIDS, for controls on how AI will work. And I kind of wanted to show what that is. So this is Voids and Fluids. And basically what it is back in, I want to say like the late 90s, somebody put programs like this together. And what it does is it kind of comes up with a logic for how swarms and flocks work and like fish schools. And they kind of have simple rules. So it's kind of like coherence, separation, alignment, visual range. So as far as AI goes, it's extremely simple AI that they have very few rules, but they can make extremely realistic motions out of it. And so it's very cost efficient AI for something like swarms, like birds and fish, and making them look like they move real. So you can kind of see that if I spread them out a little bit, or turn off coherence. Let's see if this actually works here. I didn't actually test this one. So as they bounce around, they'll just kind of spread out. But basically what birds and fish and like insects and stuff like that will do is they'll kind of say, I want to stay in this group, and I don't want to be too close to them because I don't want to bump into them, but I don't want to be too far away because I don't want to be eaten. So they do this. And so that's just Voids and Fluids, simple AI. When they start implementing it for the fauna in this game, it'll be kind of cool. Like you'll be able to see birds flying around in flocks. Very simple. So that's all I got for this one, guys. I just thought that'd be kind of a cool thing to end on. Voids and Fluids. Hopefully we'll see it soon. Kind of goes along with the theme of AI. Catch me next time.